very much for that welcome. And good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing? Good, good. It's great to be here. It's an honor to be kicking off. I did not know this was the honorary and first inaugural North American Leadership Summit, so even more of a pleasure to be here. And I'm very excited about what we get to talk about today. And Marnie teed it up so well around how our role as marketers is changing. And with the onset of AI, we have such an exciting time in our industry and our field. And I would say it's always exciting to be a marketer, but right now technology is unlocking completely new opportunities for us. And I always like to start with sort of how did we get here? How did we get to this moment in time? And if you think about it, most of us have actually lived through three major technological revolutions. So first, of course, was the internet that gave us universal access to information. The second was mobile, taking all of that information and putting it in our hands and giving us access 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then we saw cloud computing. And cloud computing really changed the way that organizations scaled and operated. But now, in just less than 3 years, AI has come onto the scene. And what makes this the most, I would say, exciting technological shift is because from all the other previous, while the innovation was coming online, it was changing the way businesses worked, the one gating factor was actually human productivity. In fact, human productivity has been flat for decades. And so with the rise of generative AI in particular, we're actually able to unlock and unleash human creativity in a way that we've never been able to see before. And that is why I think we are in such an interesting moment in time for us as marketers, as leaders, to think about how this new technology reshapes our discipline, our day-to-day work, and the impact that we have with the organizations that we serve. In fact, it's kind of an interesting, again, if you think about sort of generative AI came onto the scene less than 3 years ago. And the current stat right now is that 84% of CMOs have an active project or currently evaluating an active project with AI. So I'm curious, does that track? How many people are kind of in the middle of an AI project right now? Okay, that looks about right. So this is top of mind for all of us and how we are thinking about using and leveraging this technology in our day-to-day and in our craft. So for today, I'm excited to spend our discussion this morning. I want to do three things. The first is I want to talk about what is the definition of success. What does it look like to use AI? What is this notion of what we call a frontier firm? Who are the cutting edge organizations that are leveraging AI? The second thing is just some practical tips. I think one of the best things that we can do and why I'm so excited about our time here together is to learn from one another. I had a chance, I was in Cannes Lion, and I actually got to spend time with CMOs and learn and hear what they are doing. And I just think that is the best way to spark what's possible and really start the conversation going of what are you doing, how are you using AI? So I put together some practical playbook tips. And then lastly, what's next? In my role, I get to kind of see on the horizon. So I thought I'd give you a view of what I think, where we're going with AI and the possibilities with that. So let's dive in, what does success look like? So this notion of becoming frontier, we actually had, at Microsoft, we kicked off what we call our Microsoft AI Tour in Chicago last week. And so we welcomed 5,000 of our customers and our partners to talk about this notion of becoming frontier. And it's really all about, when we talk about frontier, it's about how organizations are thinking about new ways of working, how we access knowledge differently, new workflows, new remits, what's possible. And I know that's a lot of new, but many of you are already on this journey. And this is part of what we are thinking about of how marketing is at the center of helping organizations to become frontier. And there's one thing that we see in terms of success factors when we look at frontier organizations. What are they doing every day that makes them frontier? And there's four sort of universal characteristics that we see. The first is around enriching employee experiences, unlocking that productivity and that creativity that I was talking about. The second, which I would say is at the heart of marketing, which is reimagining customer interactions and customer engagement. The third is around reshaping legacy business processes and business workflows and how we're unlocking both productivity and new ways of working. And then the fourth is really exciting, which is bending the curve around innovation. We're seeing new products and services coming to market at a pace we've never seen before, and two, being able to be able to invent completely new products using AI, using high performance compute. And so it's a really exciting time for just sheer innovation. So if I look at where do we see this actually happening, I thought I'd share some stories because there's really interesting companies doing fascinating things. So Nestle, this is one of my favorite stories around kind of how marketing is using AI to help marketers be their best every day. So Nestle, as you can imagine, they reason over so many brands. In fact, they have over 3,000 brand toolkits that they actively manage, which actually, when I learned that made me feel better about the sheer number that we have at Microsoft. So 3,000, imagine keeping those up to date. But even more so, imagine being the marketer that's on your team that has to go find those, to go out through the knowledge repositories, be able to pick the right brand, the right messaging, the right visual ID, to be able to create a campaign. And so what Nestle did is they created a brand agent. And that agent not only reasons over all of that disparate knowledge, and it allows the marketer to be able to query with a set of prompts to say what type of campaign, what brand visual identity they want to associate with. The brand agent can then surface up recommendations based over those 3,000 toolkits, but then also can recommend very specific messaging and actually help to implement that campaign. And so I thought that was such a good example of like how we as marketers can work differently and be smarter and save time so that we can be more creative. We have more time to actually think about the strategy, the campaign, what we're putting into market, how we're targeting it, and not have our teams spend a bunch of time looking through, trying to make sure we have the most up-to-date visual identity or the most up-to-date messaging. And so I thought that was a great story of Nestle really at the center of marketing, helping to make their marketers more successful and more productive. The other, around customer engagement, the other story I wanted to share was Ralph Lauren. Ralph Lauren is an iconic luxury fashion brand. And the reason that I love this story is their brand team thought about how can we help our customers interact with our brand more successfully. And what they came up with was Ask Ralph. And so what Ask Ralph will do is imagine you wake up every morning and you have an assistant, a fashion assistant, if you will, that will recommend what to wear. It knows your purchase history, it knows your social engagements, and it knows your preferences. And it can recommend not only styles for you for that day, but also things to fill out your wardrobe or your closet. And I love this story because it is Ralph Lauren is, again, an iconic brand, but using AI, using technology to really rethink how they're in front of their customers every day. And so I thought I'd actually share a video of their journey of bringing Ask Ralph to market.
At Ralph Lauren, we've always put the customer at the center of everything that we've done. Our main purpose is to inspire the dream of a better life through authenticity and timeless style. For close to 60 years, Ralph has done these beautiful cinematic worlds, and you're a character in that world. When it comes to consumers' approaches to shopping is constantly evolving and changing. AI makes a huge difference to immerse yourself in your personal sense of style. So for me, one of the critical questions is, do we understand where the consumer is going? How do we make the journey as inspirational as possible? Do we make it super engaging? Is it friction-free? Is it personalized to the customer in a one-on-one fashion? And then how are we connecting content to commerce? Microsoft is right at the cutting edge of that and helps us on that journey to blend this world of design and world of technology in the right way, using AI as the fulcrum for that. Ask Ralph is a new feature in the Ralph Lauren mobile app. You have a conversation with the tool like you would with our clienteling associates in the store. You put in a question about how you might want to get styled. And what happens is it then gives you recommendations that are beautifully visually laid out based on what's in stock in the Polo brand. And then you get inspired by Ralph's iconic sense of style and check out directly from that experience. With Microsoft AI, this is just the beginning. And as we evolve this model, as we take this to more markets, we're going to learn how customers interact with it, what customers want more from it. This is a styling tool right now, but the ultimate aim here is to make it a more immersive, personalized, and friction-free shopping experience.
So personalized, immersive, and directly linked to commerce. And think about, for us as marketers, think about the data that Ralph Lauren is going to get when they're interacting with their customers, knowing what they're looking for, what they click on, what they buy in a real-time environment. And so that, I think, is for us the new vision of personalization and how we directly interact with our customers in completely new ways. And the nice thing about this is, and you'll hear this kind of as I go through examples, that didn't take years. That took months for them to build. Months, with their brand team leading and their chief digital officer supporting. Now, we talked about employees and the ability to do productivity. We've talked about engaging customers, but there's also the operational piece of our jobs and how we think about workflows and how we think about how do we run the operations of marketing. And it's interesting because I was working with my team and I was like, how long does it take from a final piece of content to get that into the hands of a key audience? And would this number surprise you guys? No, yeah, 12 weeks, 3 months. 3 months. I'm like, we are done, we are ready to ship, and by the time we get it all the way through the systems and we get it in the hands of our audience, it's 12 weeks. So my team's here, they know this. We're gonna get this to days. And that is actually not the end goal. We are going to get it to a place where there is actually dynamic content, and we can do this today. We see this in the market, where you actually have, I have an Alysa Taylor agent that knows, rather than pushing content, it dynamically surfaces content based on my preference. So think about all of the workflows that we have, from the ideation to creating content, to getting it into the Marketo system, to do the journey mapping, to actually getting it in front of the audience. What if, when a product launches, whether it be on the consumer side, the commercial side, it just shows up? Like, that is the new world of business process. It's reimagining and reshaping how we think about those workflows. And so I would encourage all of you as marketers not to just think about how your teams work, not to just think about how you engage with customers, but also what is the underlying process in which marketing is based upon. Because AI and automation can unlock completely new workflows. And so the next time, hopefully if I'm invited back, that I'm gonna show up, that's gonna say, one day, not 12 weeks, one day. And that's the journey we're on. So the last is around bending the curve on innovation. And this story I chose because I just think it is a fascinating way of thinking about innovation and kind of all of the things we've talked about, customer engagement, workflows, brought together by Maybelline. So Maybelline, which most of you all know, makeup, mascara, all of the classic things, they were thinking about how did they reach new audiences at a scale that they haven't been able to do before, right? They're highly dependent on web traffic, direct-to-consumer, store shelves, stocking. And so what they did is they created within Microsoft Teams, which hopefully some of you use, the ability, like imagine if you are a little late, maybe some of you stayed out too late last night, and you're headed off to a video call, and you didn't have time to do your makeup, you might not be looking your best. Actually, within Teams, there is the ability to apply makeup, to do your hair, to get a little zhuzh for the day. Not bad. I know, look, you're all like, okay, how do I guess? See, I've done it. Like, it's kind of amazing. I'm like, oh, I'm not looking so good today. So while you're like, that's cute, what a fun little thing for for Maybelline to do, it actually, with the Maybelline integration, their integration into Teams, they have reached 280 million new users. 280 million new users. And you're able to actually, within the Maybelline app, you can order. If you're like, wow, I really like this lip color, for those of us that wear lipstick, You can order directly in the app. So I put that forward because that is innovative marketing, right? Like you're reaching at a scale with a completely new way of engaging a customer. And so I loved that story for the sheer creativity of it all. But this is the new role of marketing. This is what we get to do now. We get to use tools. We have tools that we can use every single day to help us rethink how we are doing our jobs. I actually, at that AI tour that I talked about in Chicago last week, we had an immersive screen that was running with these giant screens. And when you walked in, there was this beautiful imagery. My team had created that using Adobe Firefly without a single agency. And it was something that it was so beautiful and so engaging. And so for us to think about, we have the tools. We have the tools available to us to do all of the things that I talked about and to drive that success metric, to drive growth for the company, to drive both customer acquisition and reacquisition in really unique ways. Now, you may say that's great, but how do we get started? What should I be thinking about? And this is where I would say this is a very simplistic playbook, but I think these are the 3 things that every marketer should be thinking about, which is AI-driven personalization. You saw that with Ask Ralph. AI-driven workflows. We talked about that with content. And AI-driven decision-making. How do we have the insights so that we can iterate quickly? And using both AI and automation to do that. So I want to spend a little bit of time just walking through these. And if I start with AI-driven personalization, I want to talk about the example of Santa. So does anyone know this Santa? Do you know the history of this Santa? It's called the Sunbloom Santa. So this is a fascinating, I think, fascinating story. So Santa, before 1931, looked very different than this. Santa sometimes wore a blue suit, sometimes wore a yellow suit. He was actually quite thin, it turns out. And in 1931, Coca-Cola thought, how can we use this classic childhood figure to actually bring the relevance to our audiences in the winter season? And how do we connect with children and families during the holiday season? And so they created the Sunbloom Santa that we know of today. The jolly, kind of heavier set, red suit, red Coca-Cola. And that has become the Santa that all children know every single day. Now, if you think about where the last since 1931, how children interact with Santa is they write a letter, they drop it in a mailbox, it hopefully makes it to the North Pole, maybe somebody reads it, they're hoping Santa reads it. Like when you talk about workflows, like it's a cumbersome workflow. And so what Coca-Cola did is they actually, this past Christmas, thought, how do we take what we did in 1931 and reimagine it using AI? And they created a campaign where you could actually, where as a child or any of us, could chat with Santa. And they created this viral campaign that reached millions of people. They had a 60-day holiday cycle. So this was literally from conception to when they had it in market. It took them 60 days. They created this in an app of interactive Santa. And so anyone could pull up Santa, tell him what he or she would like for Christmas. Santa would interact, give you some encouraging words of maybe you were going to get what you wanted for Christmas. They did it in 43 countries, 26 languages supported, and over 1 million consumers reached, new consumers, net new consumers, with their Santa holiday campaign. And I love this because this was so successful and went viral. And so hopefully some of you actually saw this, that I actually got to meet with the CMO of Coca-Cola. And now they're talking about how they do this type of interactive campaign for all their moments that matter. 60 days to market, over 1 million new consumers reached. Like that is a phenomenal, plus building on what they've done from a historical standpoint. And so when we think about personalization, what you saw from Ralph Lauren, what Coke is doing, these are the new ways of getting highly personalized interactions with our customers. So I've talked about workflows, and I talked about kind of the workflows and disrupting the workflows, but I also want to talk about the creative workflows. Because in our business, when we think about how we bring creative assets to bear, it is often very time-consuming and very siloed, from the inception of the BRD all the way through the creative iteration process to actually getting to that final creative. And the interesting thing that I would say in our new world of working and the new ways of marketing, what if creative actually started from the beginning? The video that Marnie showed, right? What if you start with the video in mind and you iterate from there, completely turning the creative process on its head? And you have the ability today to do that. There are tools where you can actually create campaigns and visual identity in a matter of, this says weeks, I would even assert days, and be able to bring those from the creative process, starting with the asset and then iterating. It's a very different workflow than what we're used to. And actually, WPP is doing that today. They're using a model called Sora, which from OpenAI, and that Sora model generates, their creative teams actually start with the creative. Before there's a lightweight briefing process, they actually do the final creative product first. Then the teams iterate. And what they've done is they've cut out weeks and weeks out of their creative process, being able to do that. And WPP, if there's any WPP people in the audience, they're in the business of that. And so they're able to start with an image that's generated by AI, similar to the video that we saw at the beginning of this, and then use that as the baseline and then start the creative process. And so it's a very different way of how we think about creative workflows. Like, I don't know, I've spent most of my career creative brief, meeting with the creative teams, then we look at different iterations, and then we iterate, and some period of time later, we have an asset that we agree on. And imagine if you walk in and you have prompts, and you're able to actually start from creative on day one. And that's what I think is so interesting. And so what we've seen with WPP, and this is actually sort of industry-wide, 12 hours a week for their creative and design teams. 11.4 to be precise, but I'm rounding up. 12 hours that saved every week. Imagine if your creative teams, your graphic designers could have 12 hours back. And 40% reduction in cost. 40% reduction in cost. Like, this is where these tools, what we have access to today, when we talk about reimagining the role of the CMO, this is getting us to think completely differently about how we work, what we produce. Now, the last thing is, and this is the new creative process, but the last thing I would say is around decision making. So it is equally important for all the things I've talked about around how we engage our customers, but then what is the data and insights that we have around to be able to understand the impact? And historically, about 36% of CMOs have line of sight into return on investment. Like, I know this has been, in my entire career, being able to go from what we put in market and have a linear tracking to ROI has been incredibly difficult. But now, again, with AI, with automation, we're able to do just that. You can actually track through campaigns all the way through to the end customer. Again, what you saw with Ralph Lauren, that's invaluable data that you can ingest and actually get really interesting insights into how customers are engaging with your platform, your tools, your content, your marketing campaign. And I thought a really interesting example was Estee Lauder of what they're using, how they're using data and insights to actually think about their product and what products they're bringing to market. So I'm going to roll the video.
When it comes to beauty, it's amazing how the trends are really evolving. Our Beauty Reimagine vision is challenging everyone at Estee Lauder to deliver fast-to-market, on-trend innovation. Teams across 21 brands and 150 countries need fast, intuitive, and intelligent ways to connect to information.
We need to go up against small, nimble newcomers.
We're bringing our knowledge into one place with Consumer IQ, which is an agent built by Copilot Studio.
Unstructured data is no longer a challenge. It doesn't matter what form of data it is. It can be text, image, Excel, PDFs, and presentations.
Copilot Studio transforms all of this data into a context-rich, user-friendly experience with an intelligent agent.
Consumer IQ is bringing equal parts math and magic. AI and Copilot is the math. And then people bring that magic.
Please start that over again. Oh, that's it, that we've ended? Oh, sorry, I thought it was kept going. I was like, did it end? So first of all, you have to forgive me, I am from Microsoft, so you get Microsoft videos. But I thought why I wanted to show the consumer IQ is because many of you, I have a team of data scientists, right? So when I put a campaign into market, I've got a whole bunch of people that are crunching numbers, trying to figure out all the analytics around that. Now, with AI and agents, you can actually have real-time data because it is constantly learning. That's the part of the generative AI cycle, right? So getting that data, all of that unstructured data, reasoning over that data, and then being able to deliver real-time insights is an incredible place for us to be. And so now we can go from 36% ROI into a more kind of real-time analytics of what's happening with our customers and our campaigns. And so it's a very exciting time. So when I talk about the playbook, it really is AI-driven personalization. It's AI-driven personalization. Where's my slides? There we go. AI-driven personalization, AI-driven workflows, and the ability to make decisions in a way that we've never been able to do. And I think all of this culminates into how we help the organizations that we serve becoming frontier. And I actually talked to my team about how are we a frontier marketing organization? Where are the things that we see that we can disrupt? We can think differently, we can innovate in new ways. And so I think hopefully that is our course and our charter over the next couple days together, is to be able to do that, to learn from one another and to think about how do we use these tools in a way to redefine the role of the CMO? Now, I talked about what we are doing, what's frontier, the playbook, but I also want to talk about what's next and how do we think about the evolution of this technology. And I'll give you what I think is a little bit of a preview into where we're going. So today, we are in the world of what I would call AI as an assistant. So it is somebody that, is all the things that we've talked about. You can create AI agents, they can automate workflows. It's really at your discretion. It is your marketing assistant that is able to manage campaigns, deliver the insights that we talked about. We at Microsoft call it a co-pilot for a reason. It's an assistant. But we're very quickly moving into this world of AI as a teammate. And so think about having a brand or a campaign manager that never sleeps. Somebody that can actually start the creative workflow process, manage the campaign, be able to have always-on insights and iterate. That is the world of autonomous agents. And we are on the cusp of that right now. We're actually seeing this happening in industries like manufacturing, where they're using autonomous agents that are always running in the background. And so I want you guys to think about this as marketers, because in a supply chain, that's a very logical place to think about an autonomous agent. But think about an agent that if you had, a campaign manager that was always on, monitoring, understanding, iterating, acting on your behalf. And then lastly, this world of agent to agent. And this is where we see agents collaborating, where agents have very specific tasks that they do, and they're working with other agents throughout the entirety of the workflow. And so you can actually get a team of agents that can orchestrate full workflows, that can actually start from the creative process all the way to launch, all the way to being able to manage, so that we, as marketers, actually have time to think about the strategy. We have time to think about the creative and doing what is unique to our craft, and the automation of the marketing will soon be done by a team of agents. And so that's where we're going with the technology. And this isn't a unique to marketing. This is where the world of AI is going, from assistance to autonomous to agent. And so I just think it's good to give a preview of where we think we could go. Because again, in marketing, I want us all thinking about how do we leverage this technology, and we continue to leverage it so that we become better every day in what we do best as marketers. And we're leading, and we're helping to drive growth for our organizations, and we're helping our organizations become the frontier organizations of the future. And so for all of this, it's about imagining what's possible. And again, I'm so pleased to be here and honored to be here with all of you because collectively we'll learn from each other, we'll spark new ideas. I'm hoping this last 30 minutes gave you some ideas to think about and take back to your teams because we in this industry is moving so fast. We've never seen the pace of adoption like we've seen, and I've never seen a discipline change as much as it has changed and the opportunity in front of us that we have right now. So with that, thank you. If anyone wants to connect, this is my LinkedIn, and we have 6 minutes for questions, if there are any questions. I'll let you think for a second. Yes?
I'm bringing the mic.
Hold, please.
Hi. What about privacy concerns and all that regards to AI? How are you approaching that, and how, as marketers, can we approach that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So when we think about privacy, we actually broaden that to think about what we call trustworthy AI. So there are the commitments, and I'll talk about it from a Microsoft standpoint. So they're the commitments that we make to our customers and to our partners around things like your data is your data. We don't use data to train the underlying models, and we have inherent security and controls baked into our platform. But beyond that, there is the technology side of it, right? So that's sort of the commitment side. There's the capability side of how do you do data governance? So that is when you have an agent, when you're building an agent, what data does the agent have access to, and how do you control and govern that data? Then there is the other type of tooling that how you train the agent so that you can detect biases in the agent. You can be able to, if there are harmful prompt injections, to be able to mitigate those harmful prompt injections. So there's a set of tooling, if you will, that has come online. It's in the industry, it's called AI tools, and it didn't exist, again, a few years ago, that allows you and your teams to be able to very quickly and easily train the agents so that they are responsible, ethical, and you have the tools to be able to understand what data those agents have access to and govern that data. And there's new tools that are emerging. So we talked about Copilot Studio. So you would say, gosh, that sounds like a whole bunch of AI engineers doing that work, and that is true. But there's also tools where it's inherently built in. So we have Copilot Studio that is what's called a low-code environment for you to be able to build an agent with all those controls and privacy built in. There's other tools. You've probably seen Lovable, which is a new tool that's come online. Again, I won't speak to their back end, but there's a lot of what I would say out-of-the-box tooling that has that inherent governance and privacy and security as the back end. Does that answer your question? Oh, great. Are there questions? Yes, over here. Then we'll go. Sorry. Everyone's at the front.
Hi. Thanks, Alysa. These were great examples. I work for Equinix, who's a partner with Microsoft,
Yes.
a co-location provider.
Yeah.
Do you have any examples or strategies for, you talked about shortening sales cycles and campaign cycles. Do you have any strategies for that from a B2B standpoint? Like how could a company like Equinix and Microsoft go together to help solve the tricky process of B2B sales and marketing?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say, I talked a lot about kind of the creation side of it, but then there is the AI tooling that is available today for sellers to be able to access the content that we create every day. And I think there's some really unique tools in the market today that are very agentic in nature that surface up to sellers relevant content when they based on their CRM system, right? And so it's an add-on to CRM in most cases, where if you have an opportunity, it will actually tell you based on that opportunity, I think the next logical product, service, solution is X. And here is all the content that supports you in that conversation based on where you are in the sales stage. So the ability for AI to help sellers do precision targeting and then surface up relevant supporting assets is here today and now. So there's companies like Seismic that have an agentic experience within that allows, it's what we use internally at Microsoft with our sales team. And so Seismic is a companion to Dynamics 365. And Seismic will actually tell you in your workflow as a salesperson, the opportunity, the content you should be using, what adjacent services you may be talking about, and the content to support that. And so that's all sort of programmed in, and so it's all tagging based. So when we do content creation or sales content, tagging it and getting it into the Seismic system, and then the agentic capabilities in Seismic actually surface up in the context of the sales cycle. And so I think that's getting the content that we build every day into the hands of our sellers faster, but even more important, at the precise time that they need it. I think we have time for one more, yes?
Alysa, thank you for the presentation. You talked about looking around the corner and coming what's next.
Yes.
What type of new roles or new tasks, or you keep talking about unleashing creativity, like what does it look like for marketing from a new job creation perspective? Because we all read the headline, oh, AI is going to change the world, AI is going to reduce workforces, and the Walmart CEO is talking about every job's going to be impacted. What new jobs has Microsoft created in the last 12 to 18 months?
Specific to marketing, or do you?
Specific to marketing, yeah.
Yeah, so I think, so my team, like I said, members of my team are here. The size of my team is still the same size of my team, but we're doing things differently. And so I would say the first thing, like when I talked about where we are today, which is AI's assistance, we do less project management. And I don't know if you guys have this, but in my world, we do a lot of like shepherding things along. And so being able to do less of that and then re-diverting those resources, we talk about it as proximity. Like, how do I get my marketers closer to the customers, the partners, the audiences, the industries that they serve, and less doing the sort of manual tasks. Like that's the promise of where we are right now. And so we have been able to get things into market faster. We've been able to, our output, the sheer output has gone up. But I would also say the other side of it too is we've been able to have better insights into how what we're doing is landing, and we're able to iterate faster. And so like where we are today is, I would say, a lot of the project management is kind of coming offline because we can have AI do that. And more of the ability to know your customer, your audience, the industry you serve, have greater sort of time to be closer to the actual end audience that you serve is what we're seeing today. Now, I do think, now that's today, I do think as we go forward, you will have, like, we will see more, I would say, campaign, like, more marketers that are data-driven. We've always said that, right? Like, data-driven marketing is a thing. But I actually think now we will have marketers that will have a better understanding because they have tools to do that, to have data real time and to iterate faster. And I would say for all of us, and again, I don't just say this because I'm from Microsoft, but like for all of us, I think marketing, there was some level of technical acumen. All of us, I think, have to raise our game in terms of our technical acumen. Because this is stuff where we're seeing marketers create, the creative isn't being done by designers always. It's being done by general purpose marketers. And so I think knowing how to use the tools, knowing how to get not only the tools to create, but having agents in the mix and actually being able to understand the data that is off-put from these agents and from the tools, I think is something where all of us as marketers, our technical acumen will raise the game. Is that, yeah, absolutely. Thank you again. Have a wonderful, wonderful summit. Thank you all for having me. It's been a pleasure.